Yeah, there we go. In our society today, everyone eats on a regular basis. And a survey was taken of American families, and it showed that they eat out 4.5 times a week. Sometimes that's a quick bite to eat at Waffle House, a weekly date night out, or even a big family gathering at the local Applebee's. What all of these have in common is the fact that someone in these restaurants is taking your order, running your food, and refilling your drinks. Without this server or waiter, your entire dining experience would be like that at McDonald's, where it's self-serve and the food shows the quality of the work put into it. $44 billion of the U.S. food industry is spent on tipping alone each year. What I would like to know is why some people think it's okay to barely tip or to not tip these servers at all. A poll was taken of 2,600 adults, and only 23% said they tipped 20%. And the rest said they tipped below that and even tipped less than they did 5 years ago. I plan to explain why tipping is actually necessary and why you should always tip your server no matter what quality of your service. When a person goes out to dinner and has a less than amazing experience at the restaurant, usually their first thought is to tip their server less. There are many thoughts that go behind this action, and they vary in seriousness. A lot of people assume that if they had bad service, they should tip the server less to show them that their service was less than exceptional. When a table's food is not cooked to perfection or maybe takes a little too long to come out, the customer may tip less to teach the server a slight lesson. Some people believe that tipping more than 10% is not necessary and that the server barely does anything for them anyway. There's an answer to all of these statements and why they're blatantly wrong and how they are actually harmful rather than helpful. Some people even believe that by not tipping, they're supporting the idea that servers should get better hourly pay. Not tipping a few servers here and there is not going to get that message across. It will just leave a few servers shortchanged. There are better ways to go about getting that message across. Writing a letter to someone in the government is a good place to start. Here's the deal. If a server wanted to work for a good hourly rate, they would. But serving is hard, fast-paced work that the server willingly chooses because the fast cash is desired. If a server was paid a good hourly rate, it would be a decent price to say the least. And guess what would happen? The cost of food at restaurants would drastically go up because that money has to come from somewhere, and the customer's pocket is the only option. In 43 of the 50 states, restaurants do not have to abide by the minimum wage law that covers all other employees. Only 7 states require that servers make minimum wage before they get their tips. But this is only 14% of states, so definitely the minority. In some states, servers make only $2.13 an hour before they get their tips, and they do not usually receive benefits like vacation days, health insurance, or sick leave. Usually servers never see this minuscule check anyway because it goes towards paying their taxes, meaning most servers will make a paycheck that can be as low as $0 because all their money went to taxes. The way restaurants get away with paying below minimum wage is they promise to make sure that including tips and their $2.13 an hour, their server will end up making minimum wage by the end of the pay period. Meaning they will make sure the server makes the bare minimum and then they will call it a day, taking what money they would give to them and using it for taxes. The government is assuming customers will tip servers, and this is another way restaurants can pay them only $2.13. If you decide not to tip, the server is losing out on an expected income. What this all means is that the server's entire paycheck depends on the tips they make off the tables they get during the shift. The restaurant is not liable to pay them anything more, so if you do not tip them, the server could potentially work 40 hours and not end up with much. Most people believe that all servers do is take your orders and run your food, but that is definitely not the case. Servers fill an enormous amount of roles, learning to quickly become the jack of all trades. Servers will arrive at the restaurant before opening, cleaning, brewing tea and coffee, setting the tables, cutting the fruit. These hours are something they are not tipped for, something they hope their daily tips will average out to cover. Another duty of many servers is something called side work, which is little jobs and chores that a server must complete after they stop taking tables before they can leave. These chores can take around an hour to complete, and usually they include rolling silverware, which is an added extra 30 minutes to their time. Usually with most restaurants, a server will not receive your full tip if you tip on a credit card, because the system takes a percentage out for the transaction to be processed. Another factor that many customers do not realize is that servers have to tip out the bartender and the bussers each shift. So if you do not make much in tips over your 5-hour shift, you will still be required to tip out these 2 people. And this could greatly deplete your funds if you did not make much to begin with. This is just another one of the many reasons why tipping your server is necessary. If you come in and drink $20 in liquor and then decide to not tip your server, this server will end up being the one who pays your tip out and that liquor and is losing money and not making it. Now that you have a slight idea on what a server's job looks like, let's analyze why it is specifically bad to not tip and why tipping your server should be required no matter what. Like I said earlier, some people think that if they have bad service, they should tip their server barely anything to make this point come across loud and clear. Sometimes this does quite the opposite, and the hint you are trying to drop to the server they just won't get. When a table does not tip a server, they're more likely to just assume they were forgetful rather than trying to tell them something. The most effective way to let a server know they did what they need to improve their service is to tip 10% and either leave a negative comment on a comment card or speak to a manager. Speaking to a manager or leaving a negative comment is 10 times more likely to get the response you're looking for than leaving no tip will. If you leave no tip, a server's manager will never know. But if you speak to them directly, they will diligently require the server to adjust their serving mannerisms. Second, anything that has something to do with the kitchen or the food should never be taken out on the server's tips and their wages. Cooks make a decent hourly rate and work as fast as they feel fit. If it's a good kitchen, then things will flow well, but sometimes things take longer than a customer and the server want. The server's whole goal is to serve the customer well and fast, getting them in and out of the restaurant as fast as possible. This gives the server the optimal amount of customers and thus the optimal amount of money. So when food is not cooked right or messed up, the server most likely tried their best and the kitchen might have misread something. All in all, lowering the server's tip is just not fair when this mess up was most likely something that happened in the kitchen. Third, when you go out to a restaurant, you're not only paying for the food, but also the convenience of having your every need cared for by a server. Like I stated above, they do so much more than just carry your food to the table. They most likely pre-make some of the side items for that order. They bring you drinks while constantly refilling those beverages for you. They then make sure the food is tasting good and gather any extra items you may need. Get you to-go boxes, grab the check, run the card. Finally, they either bust the table after you leave or pay someone else to. Either way, when you go out to a restaurant, the server's doing anything for you but cook the food. And you're choosing to pay for this convenience. Tipping 10% is barely anything. When you look at the entirety of what they do for you and also how this is their only wage, tipping is a necessary part of dining out experience. And if you cannot afford to tip, well, then you can't afford to eat out. Everyone has their off days, and servers have days where they're not on top of things as they should hope. This does not mean there should be a decrease in their tip. Everyone has an off day, and most servers have 6+ tables they are taking care of at one time. This means many things are happening at once, and the server is multitasking to the best of their ability in a fast-paced environment. All in all, as we've learned above, your tip money is a server's sole income. They do so much more than just refill your tea, and not everything that may go wrong is their fault. This all adds up to the outcome that everyone should tip a server 20% for good service and 10% at the least for bad service, and let a manager know if the service was so bad you were tempted not to tip.